son is dead, your concubine is dead. Tonight the house of Atredies falls, and your bloodline ends forever.
Welcome to Dune Part 1, CRAMMED. This is the Denis Villeneuve adaptation of one of the greatest sci-fi series ever written, as long as it only says Frank on the cover, that takes all of the weird bits and makes them feel normal. So make sure you're subscribed to Film Cram, and let's go! In the year of 10,191, the cruel Harkonnens occupy planet Arrakis to farm spice, the most valuable substance in the universe, which allows for space travel as well as having other life-extending properties. It's made them rich, and although the native tribes of Fremen try to resist the invaders, theirs is a guerrilla war that's not making much progress. Except one day the Emperor just orders them to leave and sends a herald over to the good guys, * of House Atredies, where the noble Duke Leto is given an imperial decree to replace his Harkonnen enemies as the new stewards of Arrakis.
House Atredies accepts!
And how could they not? Sealing themselves into the pact under witness of the Spacing Guild and a reverend mother of the Bene Gesserit order, who manipulate politics by providing wives and concubines to the royal houses, much like the Duke's own Lady Jessica, who has been teaching their son Paul in the secret ways of aggressive hypnotic suggestion that can make people perform actions before they're even aware. In fact, young Paul is surrounded by the finest, including Mentat Superminds and Gurney Halleck, who is keeping the boy prepared at all times by attacking him like Cato regardless of the mood.
You fight when the necessity arises.
And testing him in the ways of shield and knife, because he has a personal vendetta with the Harkonnens and knows just how bad things might get in their new life.
They're brutal.
A fine lad, despite being in his emo phase, where he tells people he's had visions of their death, including Swordmaster Duncan Idaho, who really isn't too bothered, and heads off to Arrakis early because Duke Leto suspects that this new appointment is really a trap set by the Emperor to force the Atredies and Harkonnens into a war that will weaken them both, and he wants Duncan to open a path to a possible alliance with the Fremen.
On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Paul may have personal doubts, but Leto is a supportive father as well as a galactic political figurehead. However, the truth is even worse, as over on the opulent Harkonnen homeworld of Gidi Prime, where Alopecia is in, the beast Raban cries to his uncle about losing Arrakis, while the huge Baron lets him in on the fact that the Emperor is actually directly helping them to lay a trap.
When is a gift not a gift?
Meanwhile, outside of the official delegation, the Bene Gesserits drop back in on Caladan for a secret midnight meeting where Paul gets a medical check from the family's Dr. Yue, and his mother's anxiety rides high despite her usual self-composure, because Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohaim has come to test him.
Come here, kneel.
Where she holds him at needlepoint to observe his self-control whilst enduring a box of pain to ensure he's a conscious human.
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
Instead of a reactive animal in an experience so full of neuro-linguistic anchors that it actually triggers his mind to level up and have visions that reflect his semi-prophetic dreaming that she's also keen on hearing. So it's a slap on the wrist for Jessica for having a son instead of a daughter, because the Bene Gesserit have been secretly crossing bloodlines for centuries to bring forth the Kwisatz Haderach, a mind capable of bridging space and time to lead humanity to a better future. So no pressure or anything. But hey, it's time for everyone to pack up and ready the ships, as House Atredies says goodbye to Caladan and passes through the folded space of a guild ship to land on Arrakis and make a good first impression. With bagpipes? Berthir Hawat is there to greet them with an intelligence report, while the locals call out for the Lisan al-Gaib, which is their version of a messiah that they recognize in Paul, because even out here on Dune, the Bene Gesserit have been busy implanting common religious superstitions that might give them an advantage further down the line. So they fly on over from the airfields to the baking squat city complex behind the shield walls and settle into their new desert life, where Leto's first priority is ensuring spice production and shipping it off-world.
To shower, you scrub your ass with sand, my lord. That's what they say.
That's what they say.
while Jessica interviews for a local housekeeper, only to instantly recognize that one of them is a Fremen and also secretly armed. But it turns out this Chris knife is both a gift as well as a test that's weighing her up to see if she's matching the prophecy, with only Jessica's cold reading ability and the heat of the moment managing to keep things bloodless. Paul in the meantime gets a lesson on the sacred symbols of an old dream and the importance of water preservation before studying up on the Fremen and their desert survival methods, only to be interrupted by a Harkonnen Harkonnen assassination attempt as a tiny hunter-seeker scans for its target, whilst the boy obscures his profile and relies on perfect stillness in the face of death. Thank God they took on that housekeeper. As Master of Assassins, Furfir is shamed by the security breach, though it's his training that's kept Paul alive. Meanwhile, the Emperor's Reverend Mother heads this time to Gidi Prime for a different secret meeting.
Get out.
Where she dismisses their creepy body horror pet project to confirm that the Emperor will be aiding them in the upcoming attack with his own Sardaukar army, whilst also requesting that Jessica and her son be exiled instead of killed.
I give you my word.
But really, it's a lie by omission, because
The desert takes the weak. My desert. My Arrakis. My Dune.
so their Mentat Paita heads over to Solusa Secundus to vibe out to some throat singing and pick up a few battalions of the most elite and dangerous fanatical killers in the known empire. Duncan has returned after making contact with the Fremen in the deep desert and reports that they number in the millions and that they fight like demons. He's brought one of their leaders over for a hello called Stilgar, who immediately tests their response by getting in a little too close, but who can ultimately see that Leto is keen to build bridges between their cultures, unlike the Harkonnens, taking note of Paul as he leaves. But that's it for the good news, because despite having massive quotas to fill for Spice production, it looks like the Atreides have been left with nothing but second-rate equipment. So they meet with the Judger of the Change, Dr. Liette Kind, the Imperial Ecologist, who, calm down everyone, has gifted them still suits for desert survival, but maybe more than she claims.
Are you Fremen?
I am accepted in both siege and village.
They take a tour flight out to see the spice mining operation firsthand as it harvests from the sandbed, while Spottercraft keep an eye out for Wormsign because these desert leviathans are always drawn in to attack rhythmic vibrations. So it's about time for the carrier to lift them out of there, but the hydraulics malfunction, turning the situation deadly, with the now grounded harvester being minutes away from a wave of oncoming destruction. Leto doesn't hesitate and turns the tour guide into a rescue mission, ordering the workers to abandon the spice for the sake of their lives. But Paul gets hit with a blow of raw spice that sends him into a trance before Gurney pulls him out for a near-death exit that ends up giving them both a front row seat as the giant sandworm swallows the harvester whole. Back at base, Leto is angry at Paul for taking risks and furious at Kind for turning an Imperial blind eye to the fact that they've been set up to fail. Dr. Yue confirms that spice has psychoactive properties, and Paul tells Jessica of the visions he experienced, including a Fremen girl who either loves him or kills him, the importance of receiving a knife, and the clear knowledge that his mother is pregnant, something that even she has barely realized for herself. And this is stressing her out, because if the Bene Gesserit are right about Paul's abilities, then they're probably also right about there being no chance for Duke Leto's survival, and the threat of their dire situation hangs over them like a shadow that's closer than any of them realize, however, as that night Dr. Yue sends everyone to sleep before taking out the guards and disabling the shield generators. Leto knows that something is wrong and discovers the dying housekeeper, but he's too late as a dart drills in through his body shield. Yue has betrayed the House Atreides.
The Harkonnens have my wife, Mana. They take her apart like a doll.
But the traitor takes a moment to give Leto a poison gas tooth as a final shot at killing the Baron for himself. And with the shields down, the Harkonnens begin their attack, pouring out of guild-folded space and bombing the city. Over at the airfield, Gurney tries to get everything with guns off the ground, but the assault is too strong and too specialized as the bombs slow down to slip past ship shields, and the entire Atreides fleet is destroyed. But as the invading ground troops start to arrive, he at least finds something he can do and leads the army out to kill some Harkonnens in their final battle. Back in the city, the defenders are holding their own against their sworn enemy, but it's the advanced techniques of the Imperial Sardaukar that drop in like pale shadows to ensure the slaughter is complete, leaving only Duncan, who stalks the keep to find his duke and family missing before flexing as a swordmaster and slicing his way through the Sardaukar at a handful at a time, flicking off dart attacks like spare nothing to then kill his way over to an ornithopter to let off a little steam before getting the hell out of there as a gunship laser beam cuts through half the city like butter until he manages to escape out of sight. And so as Raban starts beheading captives, Leto comes round from his drug dose like a Baroque painting to discover that Baron Vladimir Harkonnen himself has arrived for a victory meal and watches on helplessly as the traitor Yue is marched in to get his reward. But lured in close by the final whispers of the Duke, the Baron gets a face full of revenge halitosis that kills Piter along with everyone in the room. Paul and Jessica are being taken into the desert to die, but although one of the guards is deaf and she herself is gagged, Paul uses the voice to tip the scales in their favor, and Jessica ruthlessly commands them to their deaths within a hair's breadth of being gutted. Discovering that Yue had left them a Frem kit as well as a city in ruins, but as they camp in the sand directly exposed to Spice, Paul has another fit of visions where he leverages the religious indoctrination of the Fremen to start a holy war in revenge for his dead father that boils out across the planets into a wave of galactic genocide in his name.
Get off me! You Bene Gesserit made me a freak!
And ravaged by the poison, but ultimately surviving up in the rafters. The hazmat team are going to need a long stick to get down their Baron. In the aftermath over the city, Dr. Kynes is picked up by Duncan, who's feeling pretty pissed off at her for sitting on the fence, and follows the Fremkit beacon to find Jessica and Paul, and swears himself to the new Lord Duke. They hold up with Kynes and her Fremen escort in an old ecological station from before the discovery of Spice, and Paul uses all of his Bene Gesserit training and Sherlock observation skills to discern her double life as a native and use her own values to win her over.
I've seen your dream.
It's manipulation at a high level, but if she testifies to the Emperor's involvement, it could be enough blackmail to leverage Paul into imperial succession, turning him from just a boy on the run into a bold contender. But as the coffee service is prepared, the hunting Sardaukar are not far behind, dropping down in deadly silence, only to discover that desert tactics belong to the Fremen, who spring up into combat despite being outnumbered. But it's enough to alert Duncan, who seals the door in the face of death by slicing his way through the Sardaukar as one of the finest fighters in the Imperium as the bodies pile up to buy time, before eventually getting skewered, only to rise back up again through sheer force of will to take out even a few more as Paul and Jessica flee down a network of tunnels to an escape copter, before this time dying for true. Kynes in the meanwhile plans to summon a worm for escape, but the Sardaukar spilled the water of her life as a traitor to the Emperor, little realizing that she's willing to go out by making a meal out of them all. With no weapons and under Harkonnen pursuit, Paul flies them into an oncoming sandstorm, which is widely considered to be a bad idea, and as the 800km/h winds try to tear them apart, he stops trying to fight it and instead rides the storm like a seed in the wind. Nobody actually survives that sort of action, however, as Raban reports to his uncle during his oil goo healing treatment, meaning that it's now time to go in hard and squeeze the planet dry as they resume their production of spice. But Paul and Jessica have emerged from the top of the storm, and with what's left of their ship, managed to glide off for a crash landing before making for the safety of some rocks and donning their still suits for the deep desert, ever in the presence of the worms. They do well to walk without rhythm to avoid attracting attention, but thanks to some drum sand, eventually find themselves running for their lives under colossal pursuit, having to follow the rules of tremors as the worm waits to sense their presence before being called away by another thumper because they've been discovered by the Fremen, who first plan on killing them for the sake of their body's water, but who are led by Stilgar, who recognizes the Duke's son. Jessica promises a reward for getting them back to Caladan, but these are a hard people with immediate needs, and so to stay alive, Jessica has to reset their expectations a little by taking Stilgar hostage with his own knife, while Paul jumps another for a gun snatch and a higher vantage point to cover the crowd.
Why didn't you say you were a fighter?
Conversation ran short.
And so, displaying increased value, they gain safe passage with the tribe, and Paul meets the girl of his dreams, who calls him a little boy. However, Jamis, the guy who just got knocked on his ass, spoils the mood by invoking ritual combat against Jessica, as she technically just bested the leader of the tribe to become top dog, forcing Paul to stand in her place, because for them it's forbidden to actually fight for Bene Gesserit, and the girl Chani does him a solid and lends him her knife, the tooth of a sandworm and icon of his his visions. Their future balances on a knife edge, and Jamis is a cunning fighter, but Paul soon responds to all of the man's moves, and then makes the awkward faux pas of demanding he yield during a fight to the death, having never actually taken a life before. But he takes a vital lesson from Jamis about surviving in the desert that he is going to have to learn to kill, if anything making the Fremen like him more in their own brutal kind of way. Oh my god. So Jessica wants to get off-world, but Paul's prescient visions dictate that they must stay to join with the Fremen, who can actually ride sandworms as the secret to their desert power, leading them on a path of great danger. So thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed having Dune Part 1 crammed inside you. Making these full-on recap videos that miss almost nothing takes ages, so a great big thank you to anyone who comments or subscribes, as it genuinely really helps. So let me know your thoughts for Part 2, and until next time, take care.